Good evening, all. My name is Jason Albersheim, and I'll be presenting my web app through the Experience Builder with ArcGIS for the WebGIS final. This app I created focusing on terrorism incidents that have occurred across the United States from 1970 to 2020. And this experience, or this web app, was inspired by the fact that the United States government and DoD has shifted a focus away from terrorism and more towards great power competition, particularly China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. And while those are important things to consider in terms of our national security, I still believe that terrorism plays a very critical role in its threats against the United States and its people. So this app was designed to build awareness to that and see how terrorism trends have changed over the last 50 years. This app also will enable people to, or any user, to be able to discover trends for themselves or see what kind of patterns were created. And all this was made possible through the University of Maryland's National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism. Their global terrorism database is the data that was compiled through countless thousands and thousands of man-hours from their analysts and from their team to make this entire database possible. You can find their logo right up there at the top. So for viewing this app and kind of diving into how this app is used, I guess the best places to start with is the map itself. So the map, of course, shows the contiguous 48 United States and can be zoomed out to show its territories, as well as Hawaii and Alaska, where there have incidentally been terrorist attacks since 1970. With that said, there are a number of widgets and different features or different tools that can be used to highlight and manipulate the data in a way that can be visualized to a user's interest. So each of these points on here indicate a single event that occurred. Whether the event is a large-scale attack or a small-scale attack, there is coding that goes behind each attack. So what that means is there is a standard definition of what a terrorist attack is. So it has to be politically motivated. It can't just be, a crime of opportunity like a robbery or someone getting murdered out of revenge. It has to have a specific intent by actor or group to elicit some sort of political goal. Usually that's done through a means of fear through violence. So small orange points are those that have 0 to 3 deaths. And this map is only illustrating those that are actual deaths or deaths that occur from terrorist attacks. Anything that has greater than 3 deaths is going to pop up as a bigger circle, and it's going to be in red. And this is to help the viewer see attacks that are of greater importance or greater significance in terms of the number killed. Because the US FBI indicates that any incident that has 4 or more deaths is considered a mass murder. And that usually, based off of research, indicates a greater level of planning or detail in planning, shows a higher level of capability to make that happen. In most cases, not always, but in most cases. So, as you can see, the 9/11 terrorist attacks had pretty significant impact, and that was coded with hijacking. There's other data points that can be shown. The lat long, although when seeing by lat long is only going to show those first major points, so everything would look like a grid. Therefore, everything was coded actually as by city-state to make it a little bit more accurate. Perpetrator names, along with whether it was a success or not. Success is going to be coded as 1. Failure is going to be coded as a 0. And descriptions of what went on are all included in here. Now, the database includes 104 of these variables of descriptors such as perpetrator, attack type, what weapon was used, URLs, links to the events, but I pared it down to about 22 actual or 22 categories to make it a little bit more digestible because it is such a large database. You can also change, or not change, but you can also see the legend, which highlights the different categories of scale of attack. And that was built based off of a natural breaks sort of visualization. Base map layer can also be changed, as you can see here. You can select the number of features you want to look at and then analyze them if you want to. Now it should pop up, or it will be highlighted on the table widget here for the ones that are being looked at, and you can just narrow it down to just the selection itself. Anytime that you are looking at an event, you can actually, let me go back on that. When looking at events through time, this web app has the ability to process attacks based off of time itself, or categorize it by the year. So we broke it down into individual years from 1970 all the way to 2020, and that way, as the timeline goes along, you can see how successes and attack types and property damage change. So I'm going to go to the next widget here, and you'll see that the pie chart will actually change to show the makeup of number of attacks for that year that were either bombing, facility, armed assault, and so forth. And it also goes into property damage. If we expand out the timeline, you can also see total number of attacks that occurred in that customized time selection. And it's broken down into various categories such as catastrophic, major, and minor. And these are rough estimates that the GTD database had decided to go by to show that it's kind of difficult to determine what is catastrophic and what is major, but rough guidelines from the reporting by different agencies and cities and states suggested that this is a good guideline to go by in terms of what is considered an absolutely horrible amount of devastation for property damage versus major but nothing too significant. And then also a breakdown of target type. Another widget I also added was the editor widget, where if you need to add features, you can do so. You can also select a feature, and let's click on the Oklahoma city bombing, where you can see all the information here and you can actually change it. And that allows you to, if you see that something was coded incorrectly or if there was information here that might not be quite accurate, you can update it to your liking or as needed. Also is an analysis widget that shows an ability to do hotspot analysis. So and this costs credit, so I'm not going to quite run it, but if you add all the information in, such as curated CSV file, and then choose a particular field, you'll be able to see, based off of the hotspot analysis, where there are particular groupings. So let's say an area has, over a certain period of time, has a significant number of terrorist attacks based off of a particular field. You can see where those concentrations are. And lastly, you can also find a particular location. So if I want to find Washington, D.C., it'll come with a list of recommendations, and it'll zoom to that location as requested. And it's going to zoom in a little bit further than is preferred, but at least you can know exactly where you're going to, so that way I can zoom into the area and just look at that particular area of impact. And as you can guess, this major attack here was part of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. But it's counted as a separate event, despite it being on the same day as part of the same organization. One other thing that I forgot to mention is that as you rotate the map, you can adjust it by, or you can reset it by just clicking on that reset button there. So that concludes my map widget, and I hope you enjoy it and that this walkthrough makes sense in terms of how to use the site.